I'm Vice Signal, and this is Cancel Lincoln.
Not long after General Robert E. Lee's surrender at Appomattox in April 1865, the President of the Confederate States, Jefferson Davis, was captured and taken into the Union's custody. Davis was set to be put on trial and publicly made an example of in court in an epic way, as a consequence for the accusation of treason levied against him by the federal government. Additionally, the North was counting on a verdict of guilty to put a seal of constitutional approval on its invasion of the South. For if Davis had indeed committed treason, then the long and bloody war that claimed hundreds of thousands of American lives would have been justified. Some of the largest newspapers in the country fittingly called it the trial of the century, and with Davis being degraded and viewed in the North as the greatest traitor in American history, then, as he is today, most expected that he would be hanged. But, as the government's prosecuting attorney and Davis's defense counsel prepared for trial, and more importantly, after the Supreme Court, following Lincoln's death, ended his unconstitutional military tribunals in its April 1866 Ex parte Milligan decision, which during the war convicted civilians for crimes that did not exist, and ignored the Supreme Court's rulings, it became apparent that in a fair civilian court, Davis's defense of Southern secession was so strong and the federal government's prosecution so indefensible that convincing a jury to convict Davis would be more than unlikely, and that the trial would likely vindicate the South's secession legally and in the eyes of the public. Realizing this, the U.S. Attorney General Henry Stanberry would seek outside help and reached out to hire some of the best private lawyers in the country to litigate on behalf of the government. The first was the highly esteemed attorney and once governor of Massachusetts, John H. Clifford, but he declined the offer, stating that he had quote-unquote grave doubts about the case and that the result could be that the government could quote end up having fought a successful war only to have it declared unlawful. Close quote. Next, the famous lawyer from Boston, Richard Dana, was offered the case, but he refused it as well, claiming that it was a loser. According to Charles Adams, author of the book When in the Course of Human Events, arguing the case for Southern secession, in a letter to Lincoln's successor, President Andrew Johnson, Dana expressed that, quote, the North should accept its uncivilized victory, however dirty its hands might be, and not expose the fruits of its carnage to scrutiny by a peaceful court of law. Close quote. President Johnson would then appoint a new Attorney General, William Maxwell Evarts, but he too wanted no part in the case, and left it to the staff already working on it. Fearing the humiliation and condemnation that the trial would bring the North, in a letter to Chief Justice Salmon P. Chase, Republican Senator Charles Sumner of Massachusetts lamented, quote, to try him would be the highest point achievable of folly, close quote. Justice Chase agreed with this, as he wrote to his former colleagues in Lincoln's cabinet in July 1866, quote, if you bring these Confederate leaders to trial, it will condemn the North, for by the Constitution, secession is not rebellion, close quote. After anticipating the unfavorable outcome of the treason trial in Davis's favor, Chief Justice of the New York Court of Appeals and proponent of the war, George F. Comstock, noted, quote, if Mr. Davis is right, as to all the circumstances and results flowing from separation, then the seceded states are the rightful possession of a perfect sovereignty. The Civil War, then, was a war of invasion and conquest, for which there is no warrant in the Constitution, but which is condemned by the rules of Christianity and the law of the civilized world." Close quote. After an over 3-year-long process of the federal government attempting to trudge through the legal and political turmoil that it found itself in, its prosecutors and 2 Republican trial judges, Supreme Court Chief Justice Samuel P. Chase and District Judge John C. Underwood, colluded to avoid the embarrassment that the trial would almost certainly cause Lincoln's legacy, along with the Union, and aborted the treason case against Jefferson Davis, entering a statement of decision not to prosecute in February 1869. And thus, the once most wanted man in the Union walked away from the Civil War scot-free, and would die a free man, old and gray. For his part, Jefferson Davis was eager to defend himself in court. He intended to argue that secession had been legal in the hopes of publicly and constitutionally vindicating himself and the entire Confederate cause to the country. He even refused a pardon from President Johnson, later stating, quote, "It has been said that I should apply to the United States for a pardon, but repentance must precede the rights of pardon, and I have not repented." Close quote. Ultimately, however, it was the federal government that retreated from the case. So if Lincoln did not start the Civil War to abolish slavery, as we have established by things like his endorsement of the Corwin Amendment, or to preserve the Union in any legitimate or amicable sense, as he was aware it would not, then why did he go through the trouble of putting the country through the bloodiest war in human history up until that point, and the deadliest in American history till this day, sacrificing hundreds of thousands of the lives of his fellow countrymen and placing millions more into destitution, including millions of blacks, all while destroying 40% of the country's economy? Lincoln's answer to this was clear and direct, and it reveals the true sociopathy of the 16th President of the United States. Quote, "Let the South go? Where then shall we get our revenue?" Close quote. Or put otherwise, money.
Thank you for watching that episode of Cancel Lincoln. If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel while you're at it. It really goes a long way in spreading the content. Thank you again, fellow rabble-rousers.
Also, check out the new Cancel Lincoln merch store, where you can help spread truth to the world and show your friends someone actually worthy of being canceled.